welcome or welcome back. This video has been kind of a long time coming. It is actually the second part of the video I posted last, which was learning to self-draft a pattern for the first time. What I have envisioned is a dress where the midsection is fitted and on the back, I want to do an elasticated back, kind of like a faux shirring. I want gathered cups. I also want gathering on the sleeve. For the skirt, I would love for it to be midi length. If you've not seen that video yet, go back and check it out because you'll see the whole process for how I developed the pattern for this dress that, spoiler alert, I am wearing right now. But in this video, we're going to be actually making the garment. If you think that because I already drafted the pattern, I'm not gonna run into any issues trying to make this dress, you would be sorely mistaken. But it was a super fun process and I'm really excited to share it with you. If you like this video, please remember to give me a thumbs up, leave me a comment down below letting me know what you are working on right now, and subscribe if you haven't already because I'm happy that you're here. Now, without further ado, I'm trying to cut down on my intro times, so let's zoom back a couple weeks to past summer, just starting to make this dress. Hello, welcome back to day 3 of this project. You'll have to excuse the lighting today. Unless I am directly in front of the window as I am now, the lighting in this room is so horrible. I'm really trying to avoid turning on the overhead light because I don't like overhead lights. But the weather today, it snowed yesterday and now it's raining on top of the snow and it is disgusting. But today I started by cutting out all of my pattern pieces, at least for the top section of the dress. I am waiting to cut out the skirts simply because I'm worried that something's gonna happen with one of my pattern pieces and I'm gonna need to recut. I just wanna make sure that I have enough fabric to do that if I need to. But while we're here, allow me to walk you through what pattern pieces we're working with. So for the front under bust area, I have a centerpiece and then 2 front side pieces that basically extend like to the armpit. Then I have a back side piece for either side and then a back panel that's going to be elasticated. There's also, of course, the bust piece, which I cut out 4 of these pieces so that I could line both of them. I'm not using a lining anywhere else in the dress. I feel like the fabric that I'm using is not super see-through and I want it to just have a light floaty feel. I don't want it to feel super structured, but behind the cups I did want to have just a little bit of extra security with a lining. Plus I think it'll make finishing them a little bit easier. And then I've got 2 sleeve pieces and last but not least, pockets. And then for the skirt, I think I said yesterday that I wanted to do a half circle skirt, which I did want to do, but looking closer at my fabric because of the way that the pattern repeats and just to try to conserve fabric and use it as mindfully as possible, I think I'm going to do 2 rectangular panels formed into a skirt and then gathered. It makes a little bit more sense in my brain and I think it makes more sense in terms of being economical with the fabric that I have. So that's all the pattern pieces. I would love to just get as far into the construction as I can today. And while I don't know the exact order of operations that I'm like meant to do, because obviously I'm just making it up as I go, I'm going to essentially do what I did with the toile, starting with the main underbust pieces, and then we'll go from there. Okay, so at one point in time, I really wanted to French seam this whole bodice. Then I got kind of overwhelmed with trying to figure out seam allowance and making sure I had enough fabric, and I just kind of let the dream of French seaming go. However, now that I'm here and actually ready to start sewing pieces, I do want to French seam them, which is annoying of me. I should have just built in a bigger seam allowance, but I think I might just give it a go. Maybe with just the first couple panels, I will try French seaming and just see if I can get away with it with the amount of seam allowance that I gave myself. Why do I do this to myself? I feel like every time I'm like, I'm gonna French seam it, and then I'm like, no, I'm not. I'll just follow the seam allowance given. I don't know. front panel is done. These are the vibes so far. Obviously, yes, I am wearing a sweatshirt, but listen, it's cold outside, so unless I'm actually trying it on, I will not be taking this off. I did indeed go for French seams, and I'm honestly very happy that I did because I think it's gonna make the inside so much nicer. I just went really small on my seam allowance, so in my pattern, I built in 1/2 inch seam allowance, and so I basically just tried to do like half of that for each side of the French seam, if that makes sense, and it worked out fine. So I think I'm gonna proceed that way and use as many French seams as possible, just to make the inside of the garment as clean as possible. You guys know I love a French seam. Me, French seams. I'm gonna continue on with the side back panels, attach those the same way, and then we'll get into the actual center back panel. I am kind of following a tutorial that I will have linked below for how to do the faux shirring on that back panel. But yeah, we'll just be figuring it out as we go. So. Okay, check it out, everyone. The vision for the bodice is really starting to come together. So I've got my front panels here, and then these on the sides are like the back side panels. And then there'll be one more panel in the middle and back, but look at it. I love it so much because I feel like my favorite thing about sewing is like the magic moment when it stops looking just like a piece of fabric and it starts looking actually like a garment. I mean, I know that that's like the whole shtick of sewing, but it just feels kind of like a magic trick every time. So I'm really happy with how this is looking. I think that the fabric is beautiful. I don't know if I mentioned, but I'm pretty sure this is 100% cotton. It's super, super soft. So I love kind of playing with the idea of this more structured bodice, but on this very soft fabric. Obviously, I could like line it and bone it and turn it into more of a corset style, but I kind of like just having it soft like this. I think A, it'll be much more comfortable and I'm more likely to wear it in the summer when it's hot. But B, I think there's just something really cool about the dichotomy, is that the right word? Like the difference between this kind of hard structured, it almost feels like I'm building armor, it just in the structure, but then it's a very soft fabric, and I don't know, I'm really enjoying that. So anyway, now we're gonna get into the back bodice section, which I know I've mentioned a million times, but I will try to actually show you what I'm doing and how I'm doing it, because I think that it's a really clever kind of faux shirring process that I've seen other people do, and it saves you having to put in a back zipper, which I don't wish to do. So let's get into that. I started by measuring the total length of the bodice that I've made already and comparing it to the circumference around my underbust area. I tried to take my measurement at the same point around my rib cage as on the bodice piece, if that makes sense, so that I could basically subtract one from another to find what is that missing gap that I'm trying to fill with this back piece. So the difference between those two measurements for me was 4.5 inches, which meant that my elastic in the back section had to be 4.5 inches. So I started by cutting 4.5 inch strips of 1/2 inch elastic. I actually only had 1 inch elastic on me, and so I just cut it in half, which I feel like maybe you're not supposed to do, but I do it all the time and never have a problem with it. So once I had my elastic strips, then I turned to the back panel that I'd cut out, which is much longer than 4.5 inches. So I started by placing the two back panel pieces wrong sides together and then marking out where I wanted to place channels for the elastic to go through. So I made 1/2 inch channels with 1 inch between them. Once I had the channels marked out on the fabric, I just went ahead and stitched them in. Mine honestly came out a little bit wonky, but I didn't redo them, and by the time I had all of the gathers from the elastic in, I don't think you can even tell. So yes, be precise if you're doing this, but also don't stress about it too much. Once I had those channels sewn in, I carefully placed the elastic band through one side to the other, pinning it on either side. And then super carefully, I sewed down either side of the back panel to secure the elastics in place. This was probably the most difficult part, and I actually ended up having to redo some of the work. Okay, I'm nearly done with this back piece. Unfortunately, when I tried to sew the elastic in, I thought that I was being very careful about making sure that the elastic was actually included in every stitch, but in a couple of places I lost the elastic. It's gonna be hard to show you, but I lost the elastic on the inside. So now I have to go back and unpick a few areas and kind of carefully rethread the elastic. But yeah, also if you're doing something similar, really make sure to pin the elastic. What I probably should have done was make the elastic pieces a little bit longer so that I could like really pin and attach them on the sides and then cut them to length. If I were doing it again, that's what I would do. But you live and you learn. But once I got all the elastic secured, I ended up with this lovely piece, which I think is really cute, does a good job of doing that like faux shirring, and hopefully, when I insert it into the rest of the bodice piece, it will help the whole bodice just fit like a glove. There were a couple points along the way where I thought maybe I should stop and just like pin everything in place to make sure that the fit would be okay, and ultimately I didn't do that. Like a lot of things in this project, we're just winging it and hoping for the best. But now I'm gonna go ahead and sew this into the bodice panel and give it a little try on. And I think that'll be it for the day. So let's do it. You guys, I turned on the camera to say that one of my little elastics has come loose within its channel again. So I finally finished putting my back panel on. I think it looks beautiful. I actually French seamed the whole thing, elastic and all, but one of my sneaky little elastic bands has come loose. Definitely, if I could give one piece of advice, if anyone is making something similar, it would be to really secure these freaking elastic bands, because I think they will be very functional, but they are currently giving me a lot of trouble. I'm just trying to think, short of doing a small surgical procedure to open up this French seam and retrieve the elastic, which I really would prefer not to do because I think I did a great job with the seams, if I do say so myself. Like, this is the outside, and you can kind of see this is the offending elastic, so you can kind of see that it's like not puckering up the same way or gathering up the same way as the others. I don't know what to do about it. I don't know what to do about it. I'm gonna think about it. I need to charge this camera. I'm gonna think about it. I'm really pleased with how far I've gotten though on the top, because I have most of the bodice constructed, and tomorrow hoping to finish up the bodice and make the skirt. And then that's a whole dress. Okay, if you don't hear from me again, I'll be back tomorrow. Hello, it has been a minute since I really sat down to work on this project. Actually, it's been like 2 weeks. Basically, I had to pause this project so that I could edit the last video that you will have seen. And then I had a weekend away and just had other stuff going on. So I haven't really had a big block of time that I could dedicate to working on this project and filming it. But I have done a few little bits and pieces here and there. So let me just update you on where we're at. So I did go back and fix up the elastic in the back panel of the dress. I ended up just kind of like trying to pull through the elastic as far as I could without taking the whole thing apart, and then just hand stitched it down to secure it. I don't know that I love the way the back is looking, but I figure we'll get the rest of it done, and then if I need to make any like small cosmetic adjustments, I can do that later. And then I also put together 2 little strings that are going to be tied in a bow in the front of the dress. So I basically cut out 1 to maybe 1.5 inch strips of fabric, folded them in half right sides together, closed up one end, and then sewed the long side of that tube. and turned it right sides out. And I actually ended up making them a little bit shorter than what I had originally done. Let me show you. So this is how they're looking now, just a little bit thinner, and I think that'll be better for tying in a cute little bow in the front. Last but not least, I started playing around with both the shoulder and the bust cups, mostly because I wanted to really figure out like the technical elements of how I wanted to build both of those things, if that makes sense. I felt like there was a lot to think about, and I really spent a lot of time just like staring off into space and questioning my decisions, which I didn't think would be super interesting to film. So I have made the first shoulder and I've made the first bust cup, but we will make the second ones together, don't worry. So without further ado, I think we can get into the second shoulder. Let me show you how the first shoulder looks and then we'll make the second one together. How's that? I just remembered the other thing that I did since the last time I updated you was adding some bias tape to the top edge of the back just to finish that edge. I think if I were making this dress again, I would reconsider how I cut some of the pieces to make it easier to finish all the edges, but you live and you learn. You guys know I love to do a French seam whenever possible. I don't love to do like a serger closed edge or a zigzag stitch closed edge. The only thing about that is it requires a little bit of forethought in terms of how much seam allowance you have and just how you're putting pieces together, a little bit more so than some of those other finishes. So I wasn't exactly sure how to finish the top back edge. So I decided to just cut a bit of bias tape from the fabric and use that. I think that's it. Okay, so this is the front of the dress where the bust cup's gonna go, and then this is our first shoulder. So there's an elastic through this bit that's going to rest on the top of the shoulder, and then the little sleeve, and there's an elastic here as well for the armhole. I will say this shoulder felt very putsy. Between installing the elastic and trying to make sure that I had finished edges, it is a little bit of a nightmare. And I think I probably could have saved myself the headache if I had cut out twice as many sleeve pieces and essentially sewed the right sides together and then put in little channels for the elastic. But alas, I didn't do that and I don't have enough fabric to cut out more pieces. So this is probably not like the way that I would choose to do it again, but let me show you the way that we're doing it today. I started by stitching the sleeve on the short end to actually make the tube shape of a sleeve. And then I matched up the armpit section of the bodice with the corresponding section of the sleeve and sewed them together using French seams. So we're doing pretty well with our sleeves here. So this is the completed sleeve. This is the sleeve that we just attached. You know I love a French seam, so I did a French seam on the inside of it. This is the first time I've tried to do a French seam, like a partial French seam, I guess, because of course the sleeve continues past the point of the armpit where I attached the sleeve. So it's all been kind of an experiment, figuring out how to do that, and then like especially how to finish this little connection between the French seam and where the elastic will go. I can show you on the other side that this side, focus, this side I think looks okay. There's a couple of kind of little straggly bits that are not perfect. And then the front is looking, there's still this open edge or raw edge, but this is also where the front bust piece is going to go. So I'm hoping I can just kind of clean this up when I add the bust piece. But anyway, now I just need to add the two pieces of elastic on the sleeve. And what I've been doing is, or what I did on the other sleeve, is add in the elastic and essentially treat it like a folded hem, I guess. So I'll add the elastic, you'll see, but I'll add the elastic in a circle and then just kind of fold the raw edge around it to try to hide the raw edge. When I did it the first time, it was pretty putsy. I don't think I did a perfect job of it, and it definitely is the thing that made me think that like this is not the construction that I would prefer, and I didn't really think forward enough to know that. But if I were to make the dress again, I would do this bit differently. but here we are. So let's see if the second sleeve is a bit more clean than the first one. We can hope. To finish the sleeve, I folded the top of the sleeve around the elastic lengthwise, which encased the raw edge of the sleeve. Then I sewed the elastic in place, stretching it to the length of the fabric as I went in order to allow the elastic to gather the fabric up at the end. Okay, I feel like this side came out like less gathered than the other side, even though it was the same length of elastic, which is interesting, but I must just not have like stretched it in the same way, I don't know. But I'm just gonna proceed and hopefully it looks okay on. I'm trying not to try this on too many times. I've tried it on twice, I think, just to get a sense of how it's fitting. I know I haven't filmed any of it, but I'm trying not to try it on too many times because this fabric is super prone to like stretching and distorting with raw edges. So I really don't want to try it on more times than I need to. And I figure if nothing else at the end, or at least like once I have the whole bodice done, I can make any alterations that I need to. To finish this sleeve, I'm just gonna do the same thing with the elastic, but on the armhole, and then we'll have both sleeves in. Okay, and that is both sleeves done. Let me show you. Ta-da! So they've both got the little gathered armhole, elasticated armhole. It went maybe a little bit smoother than the first side that I did off camera. And yeah, now we gotta fill out this front. So we gotta add the bust cups, which I think I need to take a break for lunch, and I might come back this afternoon to do that, or I might come back tomorrow. We will see. So I'll see you when I see you. Hello. It has once again been several days since I picked up this project. Usually I'm actually quite good about keeping with a project and not putting it to the side, because the second I put a project to the side, the less likely I am to pick it up again, even when I'm filming a video. I have to be honest, you guys, there is a video game that came out a couple weeks ago now called Blueprints, and my boyfriend and I have been playing together, and that has just consumed so much of our time. I don't know if any of you are also into indie video games, but if you are, you have probably heard of this game. If you like games at all, puzzle games in particular, I would highly recommend it. But all that to say, I have not been spending very much time on this project, but I'm excited to get back into it this afternoon. There's really not that many pieces left, and we're gonna start out today by working on the bust cups. I have the first one made, and I'm really excited to walk you through what I did for the second side, and then we'll attach them to the bodice. And then the bodice is done. So let's get into it. Okay, so this is like the bit of engineering that I was probably most proud of figuring out. Hopefully it works once it's all put together. What it was is I have this kind of drawstring sort of thing that is running across the top of the bust cup, and it's going to be used to gather it in. Gather in the bust cup, kind of something like that, and then this can be used to tie a bow with the other side. So essentially what I needed to do was put together a tract for the string to run through, and I didn't want it to be super visible on the outside. What I did was I put in a buttonhole on the wrong side of the fabric. So the right side will be like this. You don't see where this string comes out, but there's just a little 2 rows of stitches along the top where the string runs through, and then on the back side there's this buttonhole for it to come out. So to do that on the other side, I basically just estimated where the buttonhole should go based on this first one where I really measured out where I wanted it. So we've got this piece, which is going to be on the inside of the garment. It's sewed along the top to this piece, which will be the outside of the garment. So I just want the buttonhole on the inside, and the size of the buttonhole doesn't matter too much. I tried to basically match it to the size of this little piece of cord, but because this is quite flexible, it's not like I'm trying to shove an actual button through here. So it's not super, super rigid. Now we're just gonna sew this little buttonhole spot. Buttonhole done. I had to put my camera on charge for a minute, so I do apologize that you missed it. But here it is. She is not gonna be winning any like beauty pageant awards, but that's okay. It's gonna be on the inside of the garment, so it doesn't matter too much what it looks like as long as it's functional. I've just also closed off this edge of the bust cup, which is going to be the inside line. And so now I've got the top and this edge. So I'm gonna turn it right sides out and press it. So now, even though I have this like exit point for the string, I don't want it to just be like flopping around inside this whole space. So I need to make 2 lines of stitches, one just above the buttonhole and one just below the buttonhole, which will be kind of the tract that the string runs through. And then that will be where the gather point is, if that makes sense. Oh my gosh, you guys, I just won the sewing lottery because I just finished that line of stitches, and let me show you what I saw. I saw this usually horrible sight. My bobbin is empty. However, I got so lucky because it finished like literally right after I was done. Like there's this tiny bit of bobbin thread left. I've never been so lucky in my entire life. I gotta go buy a lottery ticket or something. Okay, are you ready? So these are looking a little bit like curtains at the moment, but can you see kind of the vision? So they'll be tied in a cute little bow at the front. I think they're looking really cute. So now I just need to figure out how to attach these pieces to the actual rest of the bodice. So obviously they need to be attached along the sides and then along the bottom here as well. And I do have a vision for gathering up the bottom, not in the same way that's like flexible gathers, like with the cord, but just with a static gather. I just need to figure out how to do it in like in the best way so that I'm not having to overlock edges where possible. Okay, I just had a little play around with how I want to attach the bust cups to the bodice, and guys, I hate to say it, but sometimes French seams are just not possible. I think maybe if I had really designed the whole dress with French seams in mind, I might have been able to pull it off, but I just have too many elements that I wasn't forward thinking enough about in order to make the French seams possible, if that makes sense. So I think this is the one place in the dress where we're gonna throw the French seams out the window and just finish it the good old-fashioned way with an overlocking stitch. And that's gonna be fine. It's gonna be fine. So instead, what we're gonna do is put a gathering stitch along the bottom side of the bust cup. And I've kind of marked out where the bust cup should meet the armpit area, which is where I'm gonna stop the gathers. Then I'm just gonna pull that gathering stitch and put the right sides of both the bust cup and the bodice piece together and sew along the bottom of the bust cup where the gathering is. Then I just need to finish those inside raw edges and we should be good to go. Okay, so the whole bodice is done. I just did a little top stitch all the way around the bust cups on that bottom edge. Hopefully it's not super noticeable. I wanted it to be a little bit hidden. You guys, I'm really excited to have the entire bodice done. So now we just need to add a skirt, which I think will be pretty simple, but I am gonna wait until tomorrow to do it. I will see you again tomorrow for hopefully the conclusion of this dress. Hello guys, it is the next day and I am struggling today. I'm just very tired because I stayed up too late knitting, out of all things. Actually, do you want to see what I'm working on? I just cast on this new project. It'll be my first like actual knitting project since I knit the hat a couple months ago, and this is going to be a summer knit. So it's going to be a little tank top. I'm knitting it with some leftover yarn from another project. If you follow me on TikTok, you might be familiar with my Eras Tour project. This is leftover yarn from that. I'm really enjoying it, but long story short, I stayed up too late working on that last night and now I'm really tired. We are super close to finishing up this dress. I did try on the bodice last night. No, I didn't get any video of it, sorry. But I tried it on last night and I'm really happy with the fit. I'm really happy with how it looks. It's super comfortable. So now we just have to add a skirt. And I am going super, super basic, simple with this skirt. I feel like I spent all of my brain power developing the pattern for the bodice and putting it together, and I'm done. I'm tapped out. So the skirt's gonna be super simple and I think it'll be great. I'm basically using the remaining fabric that I have to create 2 rectangular panels that I'm gonna put together and gather at the top and attach to the bodice. And that's it. And pockets. Obviously we're gonna add pockets. Once I have the fabric cut out, I'm just going to add the pockets in and assemble the skirt, and then we will put the skirt and bodice together. Okay, that was more time consuming than I thought it was gonna be to put all those elements of the skirt together, but look how good the pockets look. So this is the top of the skirt, bottom of the skirt, and then I just ironed it down. And look, we got a little pocket. I think it looks super seamless. And now all I really need to do is attach the skirt to the top. So let me show you. The skirt is actually massive, which is what I wanted. I'm gonna do like a big gather all along the top, but let me show you what it looks like right now. It's actually massive. Like maybe it's crazy how big it is. But my thought is I'm just gonna put a line of stitches, probably 2 lines of stitches all the way around the top, basting stitches, and then gather it in and see how it looks. Yeah, so please hold. Okay, this is more like it. Ta-da! So I just have it gathered up. I did 2 lines of basting stitches and then gathered it up, and now I think it's ready to put onto the bodice. Sorry if you can hear dishes in the background. Ta-da, ta-da. Okay, you can't really tell, but I am very excited. I think it's gonna be really cute. You guys, I can't believe we did it. This dress has been such a journey. I feel like it took me so much longer than garments usually take me to make, and there was just so much more thought and brain power that went into it because I self-drafted my own pattern for the very first time. But ultimately, I am so happy with how it turned out. I think it is super cute, really, really close to the vision that I had in my head. Yeah, I just had a really fun, creative, inspiring time making it. It was definitely a challenge, and I'll be honest, I didn't think it was going to be that hard to self-draft a pattern, but I found it super challenging. So major props to all of the pattern designers out there. What you do is so hard, especially if you can develop a good pattern that suits a lot of different body types and sizes. That is hard because I had a hard time just making something for myself. Of course, I'm always a little bit critical of the things that I make for myself. A couple things that I would probably change if I were making this dress again. One, as I already talked about, I would do some of the finishes differently, or rather make the pieces a little bit different in order to make finishing the raw edges easier. 2, I think I would probably move the shoulder seam a little bit further in Right now, the way that it sits, it's just like a little bit far over on my shoulder and it's like wanting to fall off and show my bra strap, which is fine, but it's just not my favorite. So I think I would move that seam in just a little bit so it was a little bit more secure. And thirdly, the skirt. Watching back the footage when I was saying, oh my gosh, this skirt is potentially too big, I wanted to scream at my past self and say, it is. I think it is too big. I think that it looks fine the way that it turned out, but I do think it had more volume than I was really anticipating. So I think if I were making this dress again, I would do less gathering of the skirt. But ultimately, I love how cute and fun and flirty this dress is. I feel like a Disney princess when I'm wearing it, and I think it's gonna be a really good summer staple in my wardrobe. And ultimately, I'm really proud of myself because I designed this whole thing. And I do fear that I've kind of caught the bug of wanting to draft more pieces for myself. But for now, I think I am ready for a bit of a break. I'm gonna go back to old-fashioned patterns for the next couple weeks, and there's some really exciting things that I'm planning to make ahead of an upcoming trip to Europe. So you will want to stick around to see those. If you haven't already, please do consider subscribing down below and leave me a comment. Let me know if you prefer to self-draft your own pieces or if you love working from a pattern. I think there is definitely a time and place for both, so I would love to hear your experience in the comments. Thanks so much for watching. I will see you again next time. Bye!